He tells them, they must understand this. And in that time, the people that are in Judea, Jesus is warning his disciples, flee to the mountains. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. He prophesied to them in Deuteronomy 32, you will be like Sodom, like the vine of Gomorrah. He confirmed it through Isaiah the prophecy. And what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah? The wife looked back and she was like, oh, look at the Sodom burning. And she became a cow lick. I mean, a salt pillar. You know, salt pillars are what cows lick. So watch out. We're not looking back. Why are they taking us back to the temple? The thing is broken down. Why must we go back to a city that was left desolate? Now they want to go back and try and get the promised land. The promised land is a realm. This realm was described in Genesis 1 as the garden. Don't go look for the garden. The garden is a realm. He warned them. Them which are on the housetops, do not come down. Don't take anything. Run for your lives. Every time I'm in an airplane and they say that when the airplane is in trouble, don't take your belongings. I'm like, what? How do I leave everything here? So what I do is I put my passports and my things on me. When I run with it. You know, it's because when it comes to your life, flee. Forget everything else. Flee. Everything can be restored. But he says here, when you see these things, run, get out, get out. Why in the world would you run back to that? Neither let them which are in the field return back to get his clothes. And woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight would not be in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall there be a great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Daniel talks about it in Daniel 12. He says, and at that time, Michael will stand up. Gabriel announced the birth of Jesus. Michael will stand up, the prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, as has never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time, the people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. There is a tribulation as never was and never will be again. And who's going to help there? Michael. Listen to Revelation 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels. And he prevailed not. Their place was not found anymore in heaven. The great dragon was cast out. That old serpent, the accuser of the brethren, was cast out. This was the cross. This was after the cross when he went up. Oh, I love it. And Satan, which deceived the whole world, was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with them. And I heard a loud voice saying, now has come salvation and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of the brethren, John 12, the accuser of the brethren was cast out. Now you know why I jump on my bed when I read Bible. He that was accused them before our God day and night. Jesus came down and said, woman, I don't accuse you anymore. That woman stood up in the midst while there was nobody. She was still accusing herself. Guys, God is not accusing you. He's excusing you. But you know what? You've got to step up into Christ. Outside of Christ, it's just accusation. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. But listen to verse 12. He says, therefore rejoice you heavens, heavens. Jesus came and he said, no one has seen the Father except he that came from heaven, who is in heaven. He was standing, talking to his disciples. And he said, I brought heaven down here. So this is the dilemma we have now in this world. Because this is a natural world with a realm of the heavens here. That's why you must be born again. When you're born again, you don't leave this planet. It's this realm. You can't be raptured to go. You have to be born again to go. So he says here, rejoice, O heavens. So everybody in heaven, rejoice. and them that dwell in them. But look at this. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down to you, having great wrath, because he know that he have but a short time. This is why Peter writes, and he says, the devil walks around like a roaring lion. Come on. They tried to kill the Christ on the cross because Babylon was the image of the lion. Jesus is the Lion of Judah. He hath but a short time. He's walking around like a roaring lion. And they accuse us with that. We're not fighting the devil. It was that time of tribulation. We have to get these things. Can I read it to you in 2 Thessalonians 1? This is a church that's caught up in the tribulation, so that we ourselves glory in you, in the churches of God, for your patience and faith, in all the persecutions and tribulations that you endure. That was the time of tribulation. The Bible explains the Bible. We do not have to take it in our own hands. For verily, when we were with you, we told you before that we should suffer tribulation, even as it came to pass. And you know it. You know what Paul is writing? He says, guys, Jesus told us, I warned you, now stand. When you've done all you can to stand, stand. Listen to this one in Romans 5. You see, we read these scriptures and we don't understand that these books were written in the time of tribulation. Romans 5, verse 3. Not only so, but we glory in tribulation, knowing that our tribulation brings patience. He says in Corinthians, he says, these people that were so impoverished in the time of tribulation even didn't stop giving their tithes to the church. He says in their poverty, they gave more abundant, and they begged us to take it. Wow, I'm telling you, this is a picture of how we must handle tribulation. Now, this is a scripture that I have used so many times, and I know it implies to us in the spirit, but this was written physically in the time of tribulation. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? And Jesus said they're going to kill you. You want them. They're going to kill you. He says this is not going to separate you. Now, guys, I just want to say this makes this scripture more for me, because if these guys could go through this tribulation and realize nothing can separate you from the love of God, then why not? This is what 1 Thessalonians 5 writes about. He says, these people are going to go, but we will see the light. We are not appointed unto wrath. Now, Revelation 1, from verse 10, he says, I was in the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a voice of a trumpet. And I looked behind me to see, and I saw the Son of Man walking amongst the candlesticks. The Son of Man is still busy. But he says the candlesticks is the church, but the flames are on his hand. So it's like the incubation period of the church was behind him. Because in Revelation 4, the flames are on the candlesticks and the church is born. But now look what he says in verse 9. I, John, I am your brother. If it really goes bad with you and I say, I'm your brother, it means I am with you in this thing. I'm standing with you. You are not alone. I, John, your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom, in the patience of Jesus Christ, the only apostle that died a normal death. He left the Isle of Patmos, he came out of it, and he became the bishop of Ephesus, the first church. The tribulation is not for us. I walked in fear as a young Christian, scared of the Antichrist and the beast, and I'm wondering, am I going to make the tribulation? How did the martyrs make the tribulation? Listen, those guys stepped into God. It's time we do too. This tribulation is not for us, because he says there will be a time of tribulation. Matthew 24:21. such as was not since the beginning of the world or to this time, no, or ever shall be, except those days be shortened. There should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days were shortened. He says, then, if any man shall say to you, here is Christ, and he starts again, for there shall be false Christs, false prophets, and they shall show great signs and wonders, inasmuch as it were possible. They were deceived, the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. If they say to you, he's in the desert, don't go. You know, if they say he's here, don't go. False, false, false. Guys, Jesus is the only way, the truth that leads to life. I think Jesus showed us the way. Now, he says, for as lightning comes from the east to the west, even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. My dear, dear, this is not the coming of the Lord of glory. We have to get it. He says, for those that look for him, he will come again without sin unto salvation. Without sin unto salvation. The first time he came to deal with sin. John 4, Jesus says, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish the work. Jesus finished the work he must do, but because they sat in Moses' seat, the work was not completed. That is why Revelation, he comes and he says, it is now done. On the cross he says, it is finished, it is done. He had to finish the work. I have glorified thee on earth, and I have finished the work which thou gave me to do. I have glorified thee, and my works was finished. But now the work of God, the day of the Lord, had to be finished. Romans 9:28. For he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because a short work will the Lord make upon the earth. The whole word will explain the word. We can only apply the word in the Spirit. That's why the book of Revelation says, he says, you must hear, he writes to every church, you must hear what the Spirit says.